Hello viewers, you're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and this is your weekly State of Affairs program with me, Aliou Cisse. My guest this week is a special guest, is the Gambia's Vice President, Mohamed B.S. Jallow. Your Excellency, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to QTV State of Affairs program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Many Gambians still struggle to actually explain what the Vice President does daily. In plain terms, tell us, what is your core mandate as Vice President of the Gambia?
Thank you very much. My core mandate as Vice President, first of all, is to support His Excellency the President or his programs. As you know, the President is the one elected by the people, and he selects his cabinet, including His Excellency the Vice President. And all the other ministers, they have their specific portfolios, but His Excellency the President can decide to delegate a lot of activities to you as the Vice President. And apart from that, your role as the Vice President is also to help coordinate all the other ministers as far as the whole government program is concerned. And then there are specific functions, like agencies that the President has decided to also put under the portfolio of the Vice President, like the NDMA, like the early warning, like population, and so on.
Nutrition.
Yes, and nutrition. About six agencies that are under the office of the Vice President. And also, oftentimes, the Vice President chairs a lot of cabinet subcommittees, because your role is to coordinate the ministers. So therefore, if there are some mainly cabinet subcommittees, it's the Vice President that would chair. And added to that also, there are some commissions that I chair as the Vice President, like the Nutrition Commission, the Population Commission, and Disaster Management Commission.
He explained how you came to his mind following the demise of your predecessor, the late, Vice President Badra Diop. What was your initial reaction when he reached out and said, Mr. Jallow, I want you to become my Vice President?
It was an honor. As you are aware, before that I had worked briefly as the Permanent Secretary at the Office of the President, and where he actually, again, saw me and identified me, appointed me as the Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service. Probably, maybe that he was happy with my work at the time. That is why, in fact, after I retired as Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service, he identified me to be at the Senegal Government Secretariat. That is where I was when, he called me and said, we want to talk to you, because the President will not appoint you unless he invites you, and have this discussion with you. Then I came, he said, this is what I want to do. I said, Your Excellency, this is an honor to serve. And really is an honor.
Without any second thought?
No, without any second thought, because like I said, it's an honor to work up to retirement. And if His Excellency the President, he said, I want you now to come back and work for the nation. That's an honor. That I'm sure many people want to have the same opportunity. So we thank him.
You mentioned that your office oversees 6 key institutions. Yet many will say, coordination across, government agencies, seems to be lacking. Is this as a result of leadership or political will?
No, I wouldn't say coordination is lacking. Okay. First of all, you realize that, yes, we have cabinet. I'm sure if people are observant, they will see that previously cabinet was not sitting regularly. Yeah. But since His Excellency President Adama came to power, you see that in fact cabinet is sitting every Thursday, and that's one area of collaboration and coordination. And apart from that, we also have cabinet retreats. Cabinet retreats where we look at programs. So really, there is coordination. Maybe we need to do more work in terms of our communication strategy. That is true, because a lot of people don't know what is going on. But at this point in time, I can assure you, there's a lot of coordination that is going, among cabinet colleagues and programs as such. Because the other point is that even as a minister, before you bring any paper to cabinet, you have to consult your colleagues that are affected by that paper.
Oh, okay.
That's also another form of coordination that is prescribed by the cabinet manual.
Okay. Like I said, after almost 3 years since your appointment as a VP, what concrete policies can you personally point to and say, this wouldn't have been possible or this wouldn't have existed without the office of the Vice President?
I mean, I think that's a very good question. I'm sure, again, I'm sure people are observant. You realize that before I came to office, yes, I said we have these agencies, under the office of Vice President, but like a lot of them were just operating on executive order. So it's when I came to office that I made sure that I went through Parliament so that they have their acts. Like the Population Commission, there was no act. The National Early Warning, there was no act. The Social Protection Agency, there was no act. These are all operating based on executive order, which normally that is how they start. And apart from that, also even before that, I was able to make sure they have their policy, they develop policy, social protection policy, the nutrition policy. The nutrition policy, right now we are working with the early warning policy and strategic plan, because that is the first thing that you need to do to show that you have a clear direction of where you want to go. And yes, even within the office of the Vice President, coordination was a bit lacking. All right, because each of the 6 agencies felt that yes, we are independent, we operate, separately, independently. But when I came in, I make sure that, one, we come together regularly to have sector meetings, and also on monitoring. We also go together sometimes where I lead at the end of the year. We go around to look at our programs, implementation stage of our program together. And I'm glad to say that right now, even if you talk to them, they will see that yes, now there is more coordination and they are benefiting from that coordination.
Your Excellency, let's be honest, with all these achievements, I mean, what has been your biggest failure so far and what did it teach you?
I mean, I cannot, at this point, I cannot say, unless you tell me, I cannot say failure. I know there are challenges. Okay. I know there are challenges, particularly when it comes to food safety, for example. There are a lot of challenges because a lot of food, vendors are informal. They are in the informal sector, which is very difficult. To control. And of course, again, as you know, we have porous borders because the role of food safety is to make sure that they control the quality of food that comes in and goes out of the country, because it also impacts on the trade. One of the big challenges is, for example, for those in the groundnut trade, to export groundnuts from the country has been a big challenge because there was a lack of regulation on that. But thank God, I think one of the achievements that we have made through food safety is now the People's Republic of China is accepting our groundnuts after we are able to develop some key regulations, particularly in terms of the aflatoxin content, so that they are now being accepted. Hopefully, after this trade season, a lot of the traders will be able to export their groundnuts to China.
Let's look at population and social protection. I mean, the population is growing, certainly. Many will say unemployment is high. And of course, pressure on services is intense. Is the government actually planning for this growth or simply reacting to crisis?
No, the government is planning for this growth. First of all, you realize that actually the growth rate of the population is reducing. If you go back to the 90s, 80s, 90s, the population was growing at the rate of like 3.4, 3.5%. But since the last census, you realize that the population growth is now down to about 2.4%. Yes, we also know that there is in-migration into the country. But as like any planner, for every projection, you have to have an idea of the nature of your population. Yes, we know that the population is growing, but the majority are youths also, which instead of a problem is actually an opportunity for us. You talked of unemployment. You see, unemployment, it depends on how you define unemployment. All right. You realize that most of the people are actually in the informal sector. In the informal sector, you cannot call that unemployment. In the rural areas, you hardly see unemployment. because everybody is either active in the farm or in another.
Definitely, yeah.
So really, so this is the thing. You know, sometimes we feel that it's only formal, you know, employment 8 to 4 that we call employment. No, I mean, but yes, like rightly said, you know, we are trying to bring all kinds of initiatives. As you know, His Excellency the President has launched various initiatives in terms of the Women Enterprise Fund, you know, the youth empowerment, you know. But coming back to social protection, we know that yes, even after all of those interventions, there are still some vulnerable groups. That is why social protection has some programs for like the Vulnerable Youth and Women project, which is supporting vulnerable youths and women. We also have the family strengthening program, which looks at those households that are actually struggling, you know, in terms of economically or maybe physically or because of their socioeconomic status. And we provide cash transfers regularly to them.
How do you respond to those who said, I mean, the social protection, I mean, interventions, I mean, of course, you talk about the issue of the cash transfers. Many people said this is being politicized. How do you respond to this claim?
First of all, the first thing that the government has done is actually establish what is called the social registry. And I think Gambia is the only country that has so far achieved that, where everybody is in the social registry. Everybody in this country is covered. And that social registry identifies the socio-economic status of every individual. In fact, that is why even the donors now, the development partners in country, are using the social registry. You don't look at the person, you look at the characteristics of the individual, and that determines the support.
Who benefits.
So there is, the objectivity is actually, I mean, the subjectivity is removed. So it's purely objective. If it was not objective, the development partners will not come to use that. And again, like I said, I had the opportunity with my team to go around to see the impact of that. And you will go, for example, we visited a village in CRR South, Sare Luba.
Oh.
And you see the impact it has. In fact, I still remember the alcalde was telling me 18 women were being supported in that community. For him, he said, even the impact of 18 people being supported directly is uplifting the village itself. And some of the people that we have seen there actually have gone into rearing some sheep and goats, you know, and they are now self-sufficient, you know, and lifting them out of poverty. So this is, for me, if people want to know the truth, let them go into the rural areas and talk to the beneficiaries.
Can you provide hard figures that prove that these interventions are making that impact and not just reports?
No, I mean, if like I said, if you go to social protection or NANA, the figures are always available. Right now, I cannot give you now, but the National Nutrition Agency will have those figures. Like I said, for me, my role is basically not relying on the reports that they were giving me, just to go around and see whether what they are telling me is actually what is on the ground. And I'm glad to say that is what we found on the ground.
Earlier on, you mentioned the issue of food safety as one of the challenges. When I asked about the failures, and you mentioned the challenges, you mentioned the issue of food safety as being one of the key challenges you are facing, due to, of course, what you said, the porous borders and all those stuffs. Is enforcement of the food safety and the quality of what actually genuinely strong or not? Yeah,
it is strong so far as the capacity that is available. One of the challenges was actually because any food item that comes into the country should be tested. All right, and that has been one of the challenges. And so, and even after the COVID-19 and you know, and other issues, the issue of testing of drugs is also key. And you find out that because we don't have it in country, so most of the time you have to take samples either to Dakar or to Ghana, which is very expensive. But I'm glad to say that, you know, through the support, the efforts of His Excellency the President and the support of the World Bank and other partners, we are now building, you know, in fact, I think it's almost done, the testing facility at around the
turntable.
Bruce roundabout, yes.
Okay.
So it's almost done. So when that is done, that's now going to increase the capacity for us to do the testing, do the testing here.
So how do you ensure, I mean, these food safety officers actually carry on with their job without any compromise or fear?
Right now, like I said, right now we're trying to get the food safety officers along the borders, all right, and also at the Lumos, because this is where the most vulnerable areas, you know. But you see, our role as food safety is to do the testing, is to do the monitoring. But if there are any corruption, we now hand over to law enforcement, you know, and the courts. So I think sometimes that's where the challenge is. So if anybody is found wanting, you just follow the rules, you know, either through regulations or through the courts, and the rest is now the law courts.
The issue of nutrition, certainly, I mean, the campaign is ongoing, yet malnutrition persists. I mean, one will ask, I mean, why hasn't the messaging actually translated into measurable, I mean, nationwide improvement?
There are lots of reasons. There are lots of reasons for that. I guess maybe again, a lot of our foods lack the required nutrients. All right, that is why, in fact, as part of the efforts of NANA and food safety, is to now try to encourage, you know, people to have fortified foods. Yeah. In fact, the food safety also has actually some regulations on fortified foods, because, like, for example, most of the rice that we eat in this country is not fortified. Yeah. Yeah. There are lots of lacking nutrients. All right, so we are now trying to get some nutrients in, and also try to encourage, you know, farmers to also have some biofortification of certain foods, you know, because the challenge is, I know that, I don't want to mention name, but I know some of the rice growers working in partnership with government, we are trying to fortify their foods, but that is adding the nutrients there. But the challenge there is sometimes when people buy the rice, they pick it out, thinking that is not good, when in fact that's the nutrients, the fortification that is added there. That's what they are removing.
So how do you respond to claims that, I mean, urban areas tend to benefit more from, I mean, nutrition programs than rural areas?
that's completely opposite. That's completely, in fact, again, or in fact, I would say is most of the beneficiaries are in the rural areas. Like I said, yes, you have the urban poor. You have the urban poor, but most of the poor people are in the rural areas. As they're coming back to the social registry, because before with the social registry, it was very difficult in terms of targeting. But with the social registry now, targeting becomes very easy. You know, so really, I mean, I would not know where they get that from.
So are food safety offenders, I mean, actually punished, or they are just merely warned?
No, they are punished. Like I said, the rules are there. They are punished. But again, it's the role of the police and the courts. The role of the police and the courts. Sometimes you may argue that probably the fines may be low, but again, that's another area of government. As you know, you have a separation of powers. As the executive, all you need to do is just implement the laws. But it's the courts that interpret the laws and you know, issue the fine as they see fit.
Let's look at disaster and early warning. You mentioned these are some of the agencies under your office. I mean, certainly floods, storms, and fires are reoccurring every now and then. You read reports in the media. Even though over the years, I mean, we have seen a reduction in terms of floods during the rainy season. Is our country truly prepared, Your Excellency, or just fortunate that, you know, we don't have that major disaster?
No, we are prepared. Again, we have to come back to what are some of the reasons. For example, you recall in Banjul, we were affected by the floods in 2022. Yeah. But most of that because the drains were blocked. All right? But you see that since our intervention in 2023, all right, by clearing the drains, since that time, even though we had heavy rains in 2024 and 2025, you didn't see any flooding. Secondly, some of the other flood-prone areas like the Kotu stream, like the Ibo town, you see that people are dumping rubbish along waterways. So if rubbish is dumped, then the water will not have anywhere to move. Obviously, they will come back into the residential areas. Secondly, in Iwo Town, you see people building their houses on the stream.
On waterways.
In waterways. So these are all the challenges. Yes, in fact, I think after the last time I went around, together with the physical planning and the area council, they were able to remove a lot of those people from these waterways. But it is still a challenge. It's still a challenge. But again, we are also working together with partners to make sure that, like, we retrofit also. Sometimes the quality of housing is a challenge. When it comes to disaster as far as fire is concerned, sometimes you see that our houses are closed such that there is no way of escape. We think that we are trying to prevent the thieves from coming in, but we are actually, causing, fire, increase the incidence of fire in terms of this metal burglar proofing. So these are all challenges. But
so what do you think is responsible? Is it just people's attitude, or you believe something is lacking, or something is not being done in terms of dealing with waste management? You talk about people just throwing rubbish on gutters or waterways and all those stuff.
Yes.
Who do you think is not doing what in this case?
First of all, the citizens, the attitudinal problem. Attitudinal problem is one. That is because we know that even if we don't have refuse collection, we know that we should not, all of us when we were growing up, we are trained that you should not throw rubbish in the gutter. Because when you throw rubbish in the gutter, gutters are going to block, and that's where the mosquitoes are going to breed, and so on and so forth. Secondly, we know that the area councils also have challenges in terms of refuse collection, either in terms of human capacity or financial capacity. The third point is that development is going very fast. So I think for every area council, that's going to be a challenge, both for area councils and for central government. But at the same time, right now, we are trying to discuss with partners to see how we now have a final solution to all this rubbish. As we speak, there are some partners that are discussing with the National Environment Agency, to the Minister of Environment, and also the area councils, to see how we have a final solution as far as this rubbish is concerned in this country.
Early warning system sounds very impressive, Your Excellency, but how many lives can you confidently tell us that they have saved?
Again, I think that's for the economists to calculate. All right, that's for the economists to calculate. But what we can say is that, for example, I know that I think in the last rains we lost about 5 or 10 people due to that. But if you improve, how many have you saved? That's very difficult. That's very difficult to say unless you look at the statistics over a certain period. All right, but you see, when you say early warning is not just about the disasters. The early warning center, one of their key roles is basically to look at signs, the early warning signs, or early warning signs that will make sure that we don't have problems in this country, either through unrest, or social issues. For example, even land issues. Even land issues can bring problems for this country.
Which is very prevalent now.
Exactly. So it's their role to make sure that some of these communities that have these land problems, the role of the early warning center is now to go and talk to those communities to see, like if they see the signs, they now share with different partners like the security, like policymakers, to see what we can do to actually address it, nip it at the bud, before it becomes into a national problem.
But do you think they are doing much to ensure the public actually knows about their existence? Maybe go to my village, Dongoroba, they're not even aware that this is in place.
That is true, because like I said, the Early Warning Center is a very young institution. It's a very young institution, and it was established through the support of ECOWAS. All right, but they have, they have partners, in country where they meet every month to look at these issues. But yes, I agree, there needs to be more communication In fact, that is why we are actually trying to develop a policy for early warning, and together after the policy, we have the strategic plan for that, and that a key would be this, the communication strategy of that.
In the Gambia, fortunately, we haven't, experienced major emergencies like we've seen in other countries, Your Excellency. But in the event it happens, during emergencies, response is often very slow if you've been following media reports and, of course, fragmented. Every stakeholder want to take the lead. Who actually takes responsibility when coordination fails?
Yeah, coordination was a challenge in the past. But quite frankly, right now, you realize even the recent events, you realize coordination is actually very fast. NDMA is actually in the lead. NDMA is working closely with the Gambia Red Cross Society, with other development partners, to make sure that even the recent fires you see, in the markets, Banjul, Birkama, Serekunda, you see, NDMA is there very quickly. Within a couple of hours, they're already there. By the end of the day, they will have already, shared with us some of their flash reports. So like the issue of coordination, like I said, is now addressed. Because coming back, like I mentioned to you earlier on, because there is a disaster management council, all right, which I chair. Where other ministers and other partners are also there. So for coordination, I think that's now a thing of the past.
God forbid, if a major disaster struck tonight, what is that one thing you will change immediately, maybe based on the past weaknesses?
Disaster in terms of, I think about in terms of floods or...
Any.
Yeah, disaster comes in various forms. One of the things that NDMA is also doing is actually trying to have insurance, okay, at the level of AU. At the level of AU, there is insurance. In fact, I think we have received one payout already recently. And secondly, as far as the Constitution also has stated that when disaster occurs, the moment His Excellency the President declares that there is a disaster, an emergency, immediately some funds are released automatically by the Minister of Finance. All right, that's also part of the preparation as far as disaster is concerned. Of course, yes, one of the things is possible evacuation. All right, and I think NDMA also has been working with partners recently. We have support from some foundations, that are actually provided some tents to NDMA, and also a lot of some survival kits also to NDMA in terms of, in case some disaster, like I mentioned, the floods that happened in 2022 in Banjul. Some of the people from Tobacco Road were actually moved to schools, which means that schools cannot open during that time. But now with the tents that are now available, people will not need to go to schools. They have these tents that the whole families can be accommodated there.
You mentioned that your office is meant to coordinate, most of these ministries. Yet one will say, most of these ministries, they tend to work in silos. Is your authority strong enough, or are just institutions' egos undermining governance?
No, the authority is strong, because I have the authority of the president. Like I said, it's the president that delegates me. So the authority that the president gives me is what I carry. Yes. So I don't think that's the case, because with that authority, I can convene meetings. Any minister that I call, they will come to my office.
Are some agencies under supervision underperforming without any consequence?
I have not seen any agency that is underperforming at this time, because like I mentioned to you, we have regular quarterly sector meetings where we report, because at the time when we report, it's also to help. It's not that to see who is performing, who's not performing, no. To make sure that if you have challenges, we now help you to try to come up. But again, you realize that a lot of the agencies under the Office of the Vice President are actually coordinating agencies, like for example, social protection. You see that most of the time they are not implementing. In fact, I mentioned the family strengthening program. That is implemented by the Ministry of Gender and Social Welfare. They are the ones implementing, you know.
We are in a country where many people are resistant to change because they feel so insecure when there's a change. What are some of the reforms you are actually posing that you may sit at night and say, this will be very unpopular, but it's necessary for us to have these reforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a government, as a government, I mean, reforms, like I say, people are always resistant to change because you feel comfortable. Yeah. You feel comfortable with whatever you are doing. But I'm glad to say that I think for His Excellency the President, for him, always what he looks at is what is the benefit of the general good as far as the Gambian people are concerned. You know, sometimes you see whatever decision you make, there will some will gain and some will lose. All right, I may not be able to give some specific examples right now, but you know, because sometimes it can be misconstrued. All right, sometimes it can be misconstrued. But all I can say is that as government, at any point in time, every decision you make is never an easy decision. All right, because you have to weigh the winners and the losers. All right, or maybe let's say, for example, the issue of the passports when it was increased, you know, to $5,000, because the point was, as far as the agreement was concerned, it should have been increased well before, and the concessionaire was saying, you know, we are losing money. All right, but you know, I mean, government will say, oh yes, but if you increase it, what impact is it going to have, you know, on the populace? So when it comes to cabinet, then cabinet will now have to discuss that. All right, and I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's not easy. But at the end of the day, you have to weigh. Yes, people will be affected. But if you don't increase it at that time, sooner or later, government is going to spend more to compensate the concessionaire. So, you know, these are some of the issues that government has to consider.
So has there been any instance where you had to reverse certain decision because of, you know, what you perceive will be the public reaction?
No, not what you perceive.
Or something that you feel like, okay, even if we introduce this, it's not in the best interest of the public, so it's better we just.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that is always the case. I mean, that is always the case. You see, it's very difficult. I mean, I don't want to get into people's domain.
Yeah.
All right. I don't want to get into people's domain. But even if you look at this moratorium, for example, on onions and the like, I mean, there's a lot of talk. But you see, for government, you are now encouraging investors to come in the country to invest. So it's the role of government to actually protect that investment. So if people come and invest their money and they are not getting returns of that investment, and it becomes a problem, then no other investors will come in. And remember, you talked about youths earlier on. I mean, youth, government wants the youth to have jobs. It's not government that creates the job, but government provides the environment for the private sector to create the jobs. So if they bring in their money and then, you know, and create those jobs, and then you are not protecting them, then that means they'll just close shop and go, and no other one will come. So that is why at a certain point in time, government will say, now we are producing a lot of onions in this country. We want to make sure that no onion will come in, all right? So that these people, you know, they can have returns in their investment, you know. But again, like I said, some will say, no, okay, if you do that, then the traders who are bringing onions here and there, they are also doing this, they are also doing that. But government also has to weigh this all the time. At the end of the day, job creation is the most important as far as government is concerned.
Do you at some times, you know, disagree with the president on certain issues?
No, I mean, you see, the president, first of all, like I said, when we come, you see, all of, like I said, the president is the one that is appointed by this government. All right? And the president appoints the cabinet. Now, remember, all of us, the vice president and all cabinet ministers, our role is to advise the president. So it's not about disagree. No.
Okay.
All right? It's his role to decide. Our role is to advise. And I think this is where sometimes people get confused. You see, you get advice from different sources. So it's now up to you to now weigh all of these pieces of advice that you get and take the right decision. But I can tell you, His Excellency the President is very democratic. You know, oftentimes, you know, he will actually take the view of the majority. Even at times he may not be able, you know, agreeing with you, but he say, oh, because this is the view of the majority, let's go ahead with that. You know, he's a very democratic person.
Yeah. Some people who are watching will say, okay, with an experienced vice president like you have served in government for decades. I mean, you have the cabinet ministers. Does he still need all these advisors around him? One will say maybe just the vice president is enough as an advisor, considering your experience in government.
No, I think, you see, again, if you look at other countries in the neighborhood, even the minister gets a lot of advisors. All right, I wouldn't want to mention names of countries, but I've had experience where, for example, the Minister of Education, because I went there, you know, and the Minister of Education has actually about 10 advisors on various subjects, even though you have your directors in those areas. All right? Yes, like I said, the president has the ministers in these areas, but they are just giving him the technical aspect of it. But other advisors who are not from that environment, all right, can also advise based on their own perspective. Like the chiefs can also advise him based on their local perspective. The religious leaders can advise based on their religious perspective. So it's now up to the president to now look at all of these perspectives and now take the right decision, like you asked earlier on. Because any decision you take, there are pros and cons. So therefore, as the leader, you have to weigh those pros and cons and see what is in the best interest, of the nation. Because you mentioned, you know, you're from Dongoraba. The view from Dongoraba and the view from Banjul are different. Yeah. All right? So you need to listen to the person from Dongoraba and you need to listen to the person from Banjul. You know, listen to the person from Fonyi on the same issue. All right? Because if you just listen to you, you know, maybe your advice will be, oh, let's take everything to Jara. All right? But the guy from Fonyi say, let's take everything to Fonyi. You know, so, but now he has to now listen to all of you and now see what decision he can now take, you know, among all these pieces of advice.
It is a crucial election year, Your Excellency. What's your overall assessment of the performance of the government under President Barrow? And what's your assessment? What's your prediction?
You see, I think maybe the journalists, some of you, the media, that are accompanying the president, I'm sure you will be the people, the best, you know, in the best position to see what is happening. All right. Now, first of all, if you look at the infrastructural development, it's unprecedented. It is unprecedented, particularly when it comes to access to electricity. I represent the president in many meetings. I was in Tanzania, where they were discussing energy access in Africa. All right. At the time, some of the champions that they were, you know, showcasing had 70%, you know, access to electricity. At that time, Gambia had 74% access to electricity. Now, by the end of this month, I think Gambia will have 90% access to electricity. You go to the communities, or even some people say we don't eat electricity. Yes, we eat electricity. Because those communities during Ramadan that is just coming on, they used to buy ice for sometimes $100, up to $200. Now, if those people have electricity access at their homes, all right, the meters is provided to you free of charge. Like we said, we have worked in government. Previously, if you want to travel, Even if you travel from here to Dongaraba, how long would it take you? Now you can go and have lunch and come back. You can go and have lunch and come back. Now, what impact does that have in terms of the wear and tear of your vehicle, in terms of the market access, the farmers around that area? You know, their produce they can now bring down to the combos, you know, without with less this thing, you know. So I mean, these are all impacts that we having. I mean, like I say, you see, for many of us who are from the urban areas, we feel that the Gambia ends in the urban area. But if you go in the rural areas, people will tell you the difference. You tell you the challenges that they were having. I remember there was when His Excellency was inaugurating the bridge in Basse. Yeah. The people from Wuli, they were saying sometimes they have their cups from Banjul right up to the riverside, and they say there is no ferry.
That's the Samba Juma Bridge.
This is Samba Juma Bridge. You know, then you have to leave your cups there until the following morning before you can cross. Now you can just cross. You can go to Bajakuna and come back in 5 minutes. So these are all impacts, you know, and I think everybody has seen the result of the opinion poll of the CEPRAS, and I think people have their different opinions, but however you analyze it, this government, we have confidence that the people still are confident in the government of His Excellency President Adama Barrow, and I think they are going to give him another term come December 2026.
I've spoken to a politician who told me the government should redirect its focus more on investing in the productive sectors, I mean, such as agriculture, because he believes that's a long-term investment. In your case, I mean, I asked the politician, how will you justify to someone who lives in Kabada who is getting electricity for the first time from loans acquired by the government? Do you believe this investment in roads and electricity is a long-term investment, or just agriculture is enough?
No, see, if you talk about agriculture, if without the roots, how can you maximize the benefits of agriculture? Like I just mentioned, you know, you mentioned Kabada. Those farmers who are producing in Kabada, all right, the market is not in Kabada, the market is in the combos, all right? If they don't bring their produce quickly to combos, it will get rotten. You talk to the farmers, they tell you how much they are losing. Now you have quality routes. Secondly, you have electricity. All right, when you go to the Lumos previously, whatever you can sell, you sell. Whatever you cannot sell gets rotten. Now you have electricity, you have your freezer, you have your fridge, you can put it there, and the following day, the next Lumo, you bring it out. So that's impact for the farmers. Now, I mean, I'm sure the Minister of Agriculture, you know, will tell you how many projects are there. Not all are loan. All right, there are a lot of projects that are actually basically grants. If you listen to this budget, this 2026 budget, agriculture is a major beneficiary as far as this budget is concerned. All right, but like I said, you see, because the government also wants to encourage commercial farming. And now there are many Gambians and non-Gambians alike that are actually coming in to do commercial farming. Through GAIPA, the government actually has provided some land for agriculture. All right. One, we want to be self-sufficient in rice. How much money are we spending in terms of importation of rice? You know, very valuable foreign exchange. So if now people go into rice farming, I mean, there are many people that are come, like I said, Gambians and non-Gambians alike, and every time we now having some inquiries of people who want to come. So you see, development is not just one-sided; it's holistic. But infrastructure is key. Without that infrastructure, whatever you do will be a challenge. You know?
Your Excellency, I mean, with all these developments happening, I mean, like you said, they are evident. People are saying most of these infrastructure projects. Many also believe the high cost of living. Some also perceive the government to be very corrupt. Do you agree that there is high corruption within the government?
No, I mean, when it comes, let's come to high cost of living. First of all, the high cost of living, yes, we know that, again, you have to continue to talk about the COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war. People say, oh, we have been talking. Yes, we have been talking about it. We will continue to talk about it because the impact is still there. All right? Because there are a lot of foodstuff were coming from Ukraine around that area. Yeah. Now with that war, it affects shipping. Just like the COVID-19 affected shipping for a very long time. Even to get containers to ship your produce is a problem. All right. Now, coming back to the issue of corruption, I wouldn't say this government is corrupt. I mean, what is happening is that it's the systems that are working. Because you now have accountability system, you now have the Auditor General's report. Now, remember, we just tabled 4 reports at the same time. And like some of us who have been in government for quite a while, even if you ask the National Assembly members, some previous government, there was a
backlog of
reports. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, it's now because we are now doing the right thing. That's why people are seeing what is happening. It's just like crime. Sometimes if crime goes unreported, you say there is no crime. But the moment the systems are working and people are reporting, you say, oh, crime is increasing. No. It's not increasing, it's just that it's because it is being reported.
It's being reported, but do you think the government is doing enough to act on those reports?
No, the government is doing enough. Look at all the cases that are in court. How many cases are in court, and how many people have been convicted? We have permanent secretaries being convicted.
But later pardoned by the president.
Yeah, you see, pardon. There's a rule. This particular case you mentioned, and I think I'm glad you raised it, you see, because anybody who is incarcerated, at a certain point, you are entitled to pardon.
Yeah.
And even that individual, even if the president had not pardoned him, in a couple of months, he would have been free. That's the reality, That's the reality, And again, the president will not just get up to pardon. There's a committee. There's a committee set up, with various stakeholders who now look at all the cases and then advise the president. Okay, and then the president will now look at that list that we have submitted to him and say, okay, I agree. I agree, and then issue the pardon. That is the thing. But again, but like I said, sometimes I believe maybe we don't do proper research in some of these cases, because people are it's still convenient for them just to blame the president. Oh, the president has done the president. But if you look at each of those cases, I'm sure you'll see that all of those cases are basically according to law.
While the president is just an individual within government, many also have frowned at the attitude of people working in government. Should all the blame be shifted just on the president, or we all have a responsibility?
No, we all have the responsibility. We all have the responsibility. And again, having worked from various levels, you see that even at the level of permanent secretary, at the level of minister, at the level of president, sometimes you can give directives, and people will not implement your directives. By the time it would have, taken a long time, So, but yes, it's the whole thing is attitudinal change, really, and I think. Anybody who knows the president knows that, he respects time. For example, the president goes to his office by 7:45. Wow. Anybody who was with him knows that by 7:45 he's in his office, and he's in office up to 5 o'clock. All right, at most, up to 5 o'clock he's in office. Okay, but that means all of us have to follow that example. But the president cannot be at State House and know what is happening in a particular sector, on a particular director under that sector. All right? But it only come through reports. And sometimes those reports take time. All right? And like I said, because now the audit report, because everybody you see, previously, the audit reports have been coming out. But government was not sharing those audit reports. The government here did something that is very unprecedented. The moment it is tabled at the National Assembly, the Minister of Finances are now seek the permission of the Speaker to produce it, to the public immediately. That's unprecedented. If government was here hiding something, government will say, let's provide it to the public, immediately.
And what is that, key message you will send to Gambians who are watching this program?
No, the key message I send to Gambians is that whatever we are, whoever we are, wherever we are, nation building is all our responsibility. We all have a role to play in any function that we are occupying at the moment. Yes, the government of the day today is NPP, led by His Excellency President Adama Barrow. It's our responsibility now to provide the policies and programs for government, because we are the custodians of the resources of this country. But it doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't have a role. If all of us play our role, all right, I think the Gambia will move forward. I know the Gambia will move forward. And sometimes the appeal I will make is, you see, unlike many other countries, there are certain national issues that we have to forget about partisan politics.
Yeah.
All right? Again, I don't want to use example, but sometimes many countries, when certain issues come, everybody comes on board. Everybody comes on board. All right? Because that's a national issue. And I hope that this will encourage everybody in this country to come together and not see it's just President Barrow. Or if President Barrow constructs the roads, sooner or later this government is going to go, another government will come. The government will not go with the roads. The roads are already here. Whoever comes will benefit from that road and continue the development. So this is my appeal.
Finally, Your Excellency, we're running out of time. Finally, I mean, what legacy will you love to leave behind as Vice President of the Gambia?
I mean, the legacy I would want to leave behind is that for people to say when he was there, he did his best. All right, for me, that's what I do. Whatever position I've occupied, like I say, I thank God that I have served the civil service and to retire up to the point of retirement, and I'm glad. There are not many people who had the opportunity to retire in the civil service, and after retirement, you come back to have opportunity to serve again. So really, like I thank God and His Excellency President for that confidence. But like I said, I want to hope that when I leave, people will say he did his best to uplift, the people that we are working under him.
Vice President, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. My guest was the Gambia's Vice President Mohamed B. S. Jallow. Do join us next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire team.